Welcome back, my freedom-loving community. I am so honored to have over 2,500 followers. It's mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. I know I don't have words. I say I know, but I don't. I don't have words. Thank you so much for each and every one of you. You freedom-fighting community, the community that I'm a part of. I may be a vocal head, I may be a spokesperson, but this is a community. So I almost don't feel right greeting you as an individual because you are a community. We are a community. I'm no different. I am one of you. And that's something that I really want to stress in this video is unity, togetherness, being in the pits together, understanding what it's like, understanding how other people's shoes may walk, even if you haven't been in them yourselves. So many of the ruling class feel like elite individuals, even though they are also just humans. But they shop at stores where it's $300 for a necktie. It's $500 dress shirt. Can you afford that? Because I certainly can't. And I'm working overtime. I'm making decent money. I'm working my ass off though. It's not coming to me. I'm driving 1 hour each way to get to work. I'm working overtime when it's offered, when my schedule allows, which is pretty frequently. So you and I, we understand that. We understand that. Today, I want to talk about the next politician in our studies of who runs us here in Maine. Who the politicians are, what they were, who they are, where they came from, what they represent. And today, we're getting into Senator Angus King. Now he's been around a while here in Maine. So you're very familiar with his name. I don't know how much we're familiar with his history. So before we get into his GOSAFE Act, which is gas-operated semi-automatic firearms exemption. And his theory is that he's not changing how they look, just how they operate. I'm gonna reserve comments until the end. Angus King, born in 1944 in Virginia, has had a distinguished career in public service. He grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, and displayed an early interest in politics and public affairs. His early life and education, King attended Dartmouth College, earning his bachelor's degree in 1966. He then pursued a law degree at the University of Virginia, graduating in 1969. His education laid a strong foundation for the future of his political career. In his early career, King initially worked as a staff attorney for Pine Tree Legal Assistance in Skowhegan, Maine. He later served as chief counsel to the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on Alcoholism and Narcotics in the Office of Vice President of the United States. Political career in Maine. King's political career took a notable turn when he was elected as the 72nd governor of Maine in 1995, serving as an independent. His tenure as governor, which lasted until 2003, was marked by a focus on education, mental health, and environmental issues. U.S. Senator career. In 2012, King was elected to the U.S. Senate again as an independent, filling the seat vacated by retiring Republican Senator Olympia Snowe in the Senate. King has been known for his moderate and independent voting record, often bridging gaps between Democrats and Republicans. He has served on several committees, including the Intelligence Committee and the Committee on Armed Services. Current motivations and positions. King's current legislative interests and motivations include addressing climate change, promoting renewable energy, ensuring national security, and advocating for healthcare reform. He is known for his pragmatic approach to governance and his willingness to work across party lines. Future plans. As for his future plans, they are not publicly detailed, although politicians' future endeavors often depend on the political landscape and personal aspirations, which can change over time. King's career reflects a commitment to public service and a pragmatic approach to policymaking. His role as an independent in the U.S. Senate highlights his unique position in the current political landscape, often acting as a bridge in a highly polarized environment. As I said before, Senator King has spoken about the GOSAFE Act, Gas-Operated Semi-Automatic Firearms Exemption Act, which I was correct before in saying. So I can understand a politician having to make a choice, having to act quickly in the face of an ever-changing climate where a New York minute was the 20th century. We are now in a New York second, where our entire lives can change in moments. And that's not even figuratively. So I understand a politician being forced to make a decision and being forced basically under the gun to make decisions. However, I do think that a point of someone becoming a politician, I hate using the term politician because it's such a grimy word. But when I say politician, what I mean is a community-centered, a community-based individual that ultimately will return to the community, so therefore has the community deep in its heart, because one day they will return to their community and they don't want to be ostracized, so they want to make the best decisions for their constituents. So that being said, Senator Angus King, you have failed your constituents. You are not listening to us. A quick message from today's supporter. My first ever supporter. Tumblr up. You think it, they ink it. That is one of the images you can see. And then here is another. Oh, I did it backwards again. Okay, let's do this correctly. No, I'm still doing it backwards. But regardless, you can see this is the kind of quality that you can expect from Tumblr up, my channel's first supporter. I'm gonna have all the information linked below. Don't blame the poor quality of my twisting and turning. My camera's inverted. So that is just an image that Christy came up with. She designed this. I love the 18 there symbolically intertwined with the church. I think that it's very thoughtful, just all over. It's a very thoughtful design, and the coloration is great, and it comes in great quality. So that is, again, Tumblr up, my first channel supporter. So go and support them. I'm gonna leave a link down below for you to click on. So Tumblr up, thank you. And everyone else, you're welcome, because you can go there and get some of your holiday needs. And if it's already past the holidays and you want something else, you can always get your needs for every day. All right, I'm cheesy and I'm out of here. From your own mindset, perspective, and understanding. And respectfully, that is not your job. Your job is to represent us. If 64% of us say one thing and your heart says part of the other 26%, whatever, you've got to go with what the majority says. So you introducing this GOSAFE Act, it is a political game for you. You are pulling moves you think are best for your career. And respectfully, Senator King, you are turning 80 at the end of your tenure next year. You'll be 86 by the time you would get done in Senate if we re-elect you next year. Respectfully, Senator Angus King, with everything you have done for us as a state, I politely ask you to step down. You have served us. What you have done, you have done. With this GOSAFE Act, you have shown a complete lack of understanding of where your constituents are at, and it's time for you to go spend time with your grandkids. It's time to retire. I wouldn't want my grandparents in a position where they have to work at 80 years old. And you have suggested that maybe individuals work until 72 years old. But from what I've understood, you haven't worked a laborious job in your life. So respectfully, Senator Angus King, your time has passed. And now it's time for you to gracefully pass the baton. And this can be an incredible moment for you and for the nation and for Maine. 𝗍𝗟𝗬𝗘, the Latin phrase for I lead. You can represent that now. You represented the state as governor. Now, pass the baton. Further, some of the key provisions of the GOSAFE GOSAFE Act, which, again, the regulations of gas-operated semi-automatic firearms. The bill seeks to regulate the sale, transfer, and manufacture of these firearms by establishing a list of prohibited firearms, preventing unlawful modifications, mandating approval for new designs, and curbing unlawful self-assembly and manufacturing. I'm wondering where the actual F you get off thinking any one of those things would be acceptable in Second Amendment law-abiding citizens' minds. This is the ineptitude I'm talking about, Senator Angus King. Protecting Second Amendment rights. It includes exemptions based on firearms established use for self-defense, hunting, and sporting purposes. These exemptions are based on maximum ammunition capacity, which must be permanently fixed to the firearm, preventing the use of detachable high-capacity magazines. Limiting the high-capacity ammunition devices and conversion devices. The Act aims to limit the number of rounds in large-capacity ammunition feeding devices to 10 or fewer. It also seeks to make conversion devices like bump stocks and Glock switches unlawful. Senator King emphasized that the focus of the GOSAFE Act is on the functional aspects of the firearm that contribute to the lethality, rather than their appearance. The goal is to prevent future tragedies while respecting responsible gun ownership. This legislation reflects a balanced approach to aiming to enhance public safety while preserving constitutional rights. Would be the claim. I call bull. Going on, I want to continue into what this is. So, support for GOSAFE. The White House and gun safety advocates. Of course. The bill received support from the White House, with the Office of Gun Violence Prevention endorsing efforts to keep assault weapons and high-capacity magazines out of dangerous hands. President Biden's history of advocating for assault weapon bans adds to this support. Representative 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗦𝗬𝗓, as a longtime advocate for an assault weapons ban, Representative 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗬𝗓 expressed her support, suggesting that strong gun legislation may have prevented the Lewiston shooting. That is just ignorant. What criminal abides by the law? 𝗧𝗨𝗥𝗓𝗧𝗧𝗓𝗏, are you next in my studies? Because after a statement like that, you gots to go. No place in a future with a rhetoric like that. Narrative like that. No. Also a supporter, gun reform activist. Again, go figure. Fred Guttenberg, a prominent gun reform activist, supports this bill, believing it would also help reduce gun violence and associated death rate. Who the are you? I wrote this up and I guess I should have studied you a little bit more, but also get out of here. No one cares. You are not a patriot. You are not a constitutional, believing American. And if that is not your position, why are you here? America is free. You're free to skedaddle. Now, let's get into some criticism of the GOSAFE Act. The NRA, National Rifle Association, and other gun advocates. The NRA and similar organizations oppose the bill, arguing that it infringes on constitutional rights and doesn't effectively address the root causes of gun violence. Maine state representatives. State Representative Donald Ardell and State Representative Joshua Morris have criticized the bill for what they see as violations of civil rights and ineffective solutions that target law-abiding citizens rather than addressing underlying issues such as mental health. Gun owners of Maine also are critics. This group maintains opposition to any legislation that they perceive as infringing on the right to bear arms. We'll get to that in a second. We'll circle back, emphasizing that the issue lies in human intent rather than the firearms themselves. The political divides from this bill. The bill has not received explicit support from Republican representatives, indicating a partisan divide on this issue. Representative Jared Golden, a Democrat, indicated a shift in his stance towards supporting an assault weapons ban following the Lewiston shooting, but no Republicans have pledged support for the GOSAFE Act. Representative Jared Golden, there was a point where I was on your side. As a veteran, you should know the difference between an assault weapon and a firearm, and you clearly don't. I've heard you're retiring. I'm not here to verify that. It better be true because you won't get voted back in. You have disgraced your constituents. You may have done some good things, but your change of stance on this is only penalizing law-abiding citizens. There is no room in the government for individuals of that ilk any longer. So these varied responses showcase the complex and deeply rooted opinions on gun control and Second Amendment rights in the United States. The debate over the GOSAFE Act reflects broader national conversations about how to balance public safety with constitutional freedoms. The Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, part of the Bill of Rights, explicitly states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Let me repeat that one more time. This is the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Our First Amendment is there for a reason. We are all able to freely speak so far as it induces a riot. The Second Amendment is there to ensure that we have the First Amendment. Without the Second Amendment, we are sheeps to slaughter. We are ideologic sheeps to slaughter. But if we have the Second Amendment to back up every other amendment, especially number 1, then we are truly a free society. Take that away in any regard. You reduce our militia so that is lesser than the American government. There is a reason America exists. We broke away from the British control. We did that with arms. We did that by any means necessary because we, the people, ultimately run the show. Politicians and government officials, you have been elected and you have been part of the elite for far too long. Your time has passed, and Senator Angus King, unfortunately, you represent that branch of individual and it can no longer be tolerated. So again, respectfully, it is time for you to step down. Getting more into this amendment has been subject, number 2, of extensive legal and political debate regarding the extent of the right to keep and bear arms for individuals versus regulated militias, and how this right applies to modern gun ownership and regulation. In the context of the Second Amendment, infringed generally refers to the act of violating, undermining, or encroaching upon the right of people to keep and bear arms. This term has been central to legal interpretation and debates regarding the extent and limitations of gun rights in the United States, particularly concerning how government regulations and laws can interact with this constitutional right without violating it. In the context of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, arms refers broadly to weapons. Historically, this encompassed the types of weapons commonly used for individuals and militia defense at the time the amendment was written, such as muskets and rifles. Over time, the definition of arms as it relates to the Second Amendment has been subject to legal interpretation and debate, particularly in regards to the inclusion of modern firearms. The scope of types of weapons covered under this term continue to be significant aspects of legal discussions and court rulings related to gun rights and regulation. Senator Angus King's use of assault weapon in the context of the GOSAFE Act is not defined by specific models of assault rifles, but rather focuses on the functionality and lethality of the weapons. Key aspects of this definition include limitation on magazine capacity. The bill aims to limit the bullet capacity of magazines to 10 rounds for rifles and shotguns and 15 rounds for handguns. Ban on detachable magazines. The proposal includes banning detachable magazines that facilitate rapid reloading. Instead, magazines would be fixed and internal, requiring manual reloading of weapons. Focus on weapon lethality. Senator King emphasized the lethality of the weapon rather than its appearance. The bill is designed to focus on the functional aspects that make a weapon more lethal. Regulations on manufacture and sale. The GOSAFE Act would prohibit the manufacture, sale, and resale of guns that do not meet these regulations. However, firearms already manufactured could be passed down or sold back to the government through a buyback program. Additionally, the bill would ban bump stocks, which enable guns to fire like machine guns. This approach represents a shift from traditional definitions based on the physical features of assault weapons to a focus on their functional and lethal characteristics. So, all of this is based on terms. Law is based on words. The Constitution is written by words. Those words combined make phrases, make sentences, make law. In the court of law, you can argue a comma. You can argue but. You can argue and. You can argue may. Those small terms are often the most ambiguous, opposed to inconsequential, many syllables, a very straightforward point. But, or, may, those are words that cause controversy and cause debate. Everything is based on words. Where I'm getting at here is the term assault weapon is controversial and lacks a consistent, universal, accepted definition, leading to a varied interpretation based on the context and the individuals or entities defining it. This ambiguity stems from several factors: physical characteristics versus functionality. Some definitions focus on cosmetic features of the weapon, like pistol grips or military-style appearance, while others are based on functionality such as rapid fire capability or magazine capacity. Legal definitions vary. Different jurisdictions and laws define assault weapons in various ways. For instance, the 1994 federal assault weapons ban, which has since expired, defined them based on specific features, but states and localities have their own definitions. Political and public perception. The definition can be influenced by political perception and public sentiment. Advocates for gun control and gun rights often have differing views on what constitutes an assault weapon. Changing technology. Advances in firearm technology can outpace legislation, leading to new types of weapons that may not fit existing definitions. From a good friend of mine at work, this is a quote. I'm not going to say the name. I will say the name in the future because I will use this quote again, and we all should. Technology changes, but our rights do not. Let me repeat that. Technology, firearms, changes, but our rights, our Second Amendment rights, our constitutional rights, our freedoms as Americans do not change. Anyone coming for change, anyone trying to suppress our Second Amendment, anyone coming for the Constitution of freedom-loving, patriotic American people will be shut down. It is old, outdated, tired, crusty, disgusting, and out the door. We have fresh faces. We have new individuals that are raised with the community, that work alongside the community, that understand the community, that will represent the community. Anyone standing in the way of that is a fascist, does not stand for democracy, and does not stand for freedom. There is no place for that in the US, let alone in Maine. Technology changes, but our rights do not. Because of these factors, the definition of assault weapon can change over time and vary depending on who is in charge and their legislative or regulatory priorities. This consistency contributes to the ongoing debate and controversy surrounding gun control laws and the regulation of specific types of firearms. In legal terms, assault is defined as an intentional act by one person that creates an apprehension in another of an imminent, harmful, or offensive contact. It involves the fear or apprehension of violence, though no physical contact needs to occur. This definition can vary slightly by jurisdiction, but generally encompasses the threat or attempt to inflict physical harm on someone, potentially creating a criminal offense. This differs from battery, which is the actual physical impact or unlawful touching. In the context of legal charges, assault doesn't necessarily involve physical contact, but rather the reasonable threat or fear of such contact. So assault in general, like we're not talking assault weapon here, we're talking about assault. I can just raise fisticuffs to you and you can imminently feel fear, and in some courts of law with certain juries, that would be assault. So if I just flash a weapon, that could be imminent fear. So what is to say a K, an AR, a Glock, any of those? They can all be fear-inducing. So we allow assault weapon, that term, to slide, and it's a slippery slope. No, there is no assault weapon. There is no distinguishing that in the Second Amendment of the Constitution. So get the out of here with it. Get out. Seriously. Angus King. Furthermore, the term assault weapon in legal and legislative context typically refers to a specific category of firearms, not to any object used to commit an assault. So I can't just use my cell phone to bludgeon you and that's an assault weapon. Although in certain courts of law, this can be an imminent fear. You could be in danger because I can hit you on the temple with this. Where does this stop? Freedom is freedom. While theoretically any object used in an attack could be described colloquially as a weapon in an assault, legally and politically the term assault weapon is almost exclusively associated with certain types of firearms that are not. The term assault weapon is almost exclusively associated with certain types of firearms that are defined by specific characteristics or functionalities, such as semi-automatic rifles with certain features. This definition is distinct from the general legal concept of assault, which refers to the act of threatening or attempting violence. So that is a look into what Senator King is advocating, what he's working towards, where his heart is. It's not towards the constituents. It is not with us, the people. He has his own agendas. He's trying to get reelected in 2024 at the age of 80 or 81, being the oldest individual elected to Maine government, which should not happen. That is too old. It is elder abuse. Go home, retire, spend time with your grandchildren. You have better things to do than force your opinion on people that don't agree with you in a state that belongs to us, that frankly you didn't even come from. Why Maine? Why come to Maine? Did you see an opening and you just wanted to force your opinion on an innocent state that would take you because you ran as independent and you were mostly Democrat? Because looking back at your records, they speak for yourself. They speak for themselves. So if you're like me, then you are fed up with Senator Angus King, his positions, his stance, and what he is doing. So I've written up 2 different letters that can be sent to him, and you can choose the wording. One of them is softer language, is more direct and pointed. I'll read both of them, and I'll include the templates down below for both of them, so that way you can use this to send in for yourself. And only people from Maine should do this, because this is a Maine state problem. But if you're from out of state, if you're from another country, take this to heart, use what I'm saying, use what I'm proposing, and follow through with a similar thing, because we the people of the globe hold the power. We the people. We only lose power when we give it up, when we allow others to have it. And I'm done with that. I don't know about you, but it's time for change. It's time for fresh faces. It's time for community members like you and me to run for official positions, because the people that have been in power, the elite, they have failed us so hard, and we all know it. So let's do something about it. So this is my first template letter. Of course, it has your name, address, Senator King, his address. Then it goes on to say, Dear Senator King, I am writing to you as a resident of Maine and a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. Your recent introduction of the gas-operated semi-automatic firearms exclusion, GOSAFE Act, has raised significant concerns among many in our community who deeply value our constitutional rights. While I acknowledge and appreciate your past contributions to our state, I am compelled to express my disquiet regarding the potential implications of the GOSAFE Act. As a firm believer in the principles enshrined in the Second Amendment, I am concerned that the legislation may inadvertently encroach upon the rights of law-abiding citizens. The ability to defend ourselves and our families is a fundamental aspect of our liberties. There is a prevailing sentiment that regulations like the GOSAFE Act might not effectively deter criminals who are unlikely to adhere to such laws. Instead, such measures could transform upstanding citizens into unintentional lawbreakers, thereby undermining the very fabric of a free and just society. In light of these considerations, I urge you to reconsider the approach of the GOSAFE Act. I believe that a balance can be achieved between ensuring public safety and upholding our constitutional rights. As your constituent, my hope is that you will engage in a dialogue that considers the perspectives of Second Amendment advocates. us. Thank you for your service to our state and considering my views on this matter. I look forward to your response and to a legislative approach that respects the rights and freedoms of all Mainers. That was the first one, lighter terminology. Let's get to the second, stronger terminology. Dear Senator King, as a Maine resident and staunch Second Amendment advocate, I am deeply concerned about your support for the GOSAFE Act. This legislation is seen by many as a direct encroachment on our constitutional rights. The Second Amendment is a non-negotiable foundation of our freedom, and any legislation perceived as infringing upon this right is unacceptable. Your role as a public servant is to represent the will of our constituents, and I must remind you, your role as a public servant is to represent the will of your constituents, and I must remind you that there is a growing dissatisfaction with the direction of your policies. And as you plan to run for re-election in 2024, consider the message you are sending to those you seek to represent. Continuous alienation of Second Amendment supporters is not a path to victory. Maine is ready for change. We seek leaders who resonate with current community needs and embrace the protective measures enshrined in our Constitution. While your past accomplishments are acknowledged, they cannot be overshadowed the pressing need for representation that aligns more closely with our values and rights as citizens. In the spirit of progress and alignment with the voices of Maine, I respectfully suggest that it may be time for new leadership. We appreciate your service, but the future calls for a new generation, in touch with the evolving dynamics of our state and nation. Thank you for considering the perspective of those who hold the Second Amendment in high regard. We await a response that reflects a commitment to the freedoms we hold dear. Sincerely, your name. So, correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding, but my understanding is that Maine is ready for new, fresh political faces governing and ruling our state, listening respectfully and obliging the constituents they represent. Because for far too long, that has not happened, and that's reproachful. So let's move forward. Let's move forward in a beneficial direction. Let's start conversation. Let's get some comments going. Let's really just get a community that wants progressive, decent, healthy change while respecting tradition and why it's there, but moving forward in an equitable and fundamentally freedom way. Anything that infringes upon our freedom gots to go. Gots to go. It's gots to go. And honestly, I'm not alone in feeling that there are dinosaurs running our country, and those things are extinct, and they're extinct for a reason. It's time for some new leadership. What do you think? Leave some comments down below. Are you running for something locally in your area? Are you trying to make change? Are you even just a scout leader in your local Boy Scouts troop? Are you a youth leader in your church? What are you doing? Are you leading something in a public school, trying to reach the youth and trying to inspire, uplift, motivate, and do good things? Because I want to hear about it down below. And if that is you, if this video connects and resonates with you, please go ahead, like and subscribe, because there will be much more content coming like this, and all engagement, any engagement really helps. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you making it through this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.